On the night I was born, the sky roared like it was angry at the world. Rain fell so hard the ground turned into rivers. My mother carried me under her cloth, her hands shaking as she stood at the edge of the sacred river. I did not know her then, but I felt her fear. She whispered that I was cursed, that my birth had brought shame and misfortune. People in the village had filled her mind with poison, saying I would destroy her life. In her jealousy and fear, she made a choice that would change everything. She placed me on the cold stones by the river and walked away without looking back. I did not cry like other babies. Instead, the water around me began to glow softly. The river moved strangely, like it was breathing. From deep below, something ancient stirred. The river was not just water. It was alive. I felt myself being lifted, not by hands, but by something unseen. The cold disappeared. Darkness became warmth. I should have drowned that night, but instead, I was chosen. As my mother disappeared into the storm, the river opened its secret world for me. My story did not end there. It was only beginning beneath the water. I remember nothing of air or land after that night. My first memories are of light underwater. I was not drowning. I was floating inside something soft, like a dream that never ends. Strange glowing plants grew around me, and I could breathe as if the water was my home. A voice, gentle but powerful, spoke to me without words. It told me I was safe. It told me I was not unwanted here. The river goddess had taken me in. She was not like any human mother. She did not speak often, but when she did, the water itself listened. She showed me how to rest without fear and how to feel the truth in everything around me. Spirits of the river came to guide me. Some looked like fish made of light. Others looked like shadows with kind eyes. They taught me patience and silence. I learned that pain can turn into wisdom if you do not fight it. Years passed in that hidden world. I grew, not with anger, but with calm understanding. I never asked why I was left behind. The river already knew. And slowly, I began to understand that one day, I would have to return. Time under the river does not feel like time on land. I do not know how many years passed while I lived in that hidden world. I only know I grew from a helpless child into a quiet young girl. My hair flowed like dark water, and my skin carried a soft glow. The river goddess watched me closely. She said I carried something special inside me. Not power for destruction, but truth for balance. She taught me how to listen to water, how it carries memories of everything it touches. I learned that the river never forgets anything. Not lies, not cruelty, not love. The spirits showed me visions of the world above. I saw villages, people laughing, people hurting each other, and I sometimes saw flashes of a woman's face. I did not know she was my mother. I only felt something strange in my chest whenever she appeared. The goddess warned me that the world above was not kind. But she also said I could not stay hidden forever. Truth must walk where lies have grown, she told me. Those words stayed with me always. And one day, the river opened again. The day I returned to the surface, the water trembled as if afraid. The river goddess stood beside me, her form glowing like silver mist. She placed a hand on my forehead and told me I must walk carefully among humans. You are not here to destroy, she said, but to reveal. Then she let me go. I rose through the water and broke into the world of air for the first time in years. The sunlight hurt my eyes, but I did not fall. I stood by the riverbank, barefoot, looking at a world I barely remembered. The forest was loud with birds. The wind felt sharp against my skin. I did not know where to go, but something inside me pulled me forward. I wore simple clothes made from river plants, soft and pale like mist. People from a nearby path saw me and stopped. They whispered that I looked strange, almost unreal. Some stepped back in fear. I did not speak. I only looked at them calmly. I did not know yet that one of them carried the blood of my past. I walked forward into the village, and the river watched behind me. The village was larger than anything I had seen in the river's visions. Houses were made of clay and wood, and people moved quickly like ants. As I walked in, whispers followed me. They said I looked too calm, too different. I heard them call me, strange girl from nowhere. I did not respond. I had learned silence under the river. I found work carrying water and cleaning near the market. People allowed me to stay because I worked without complaint. But I noticed something unusual. When I touched water, it moved differently. It shimmered more brightly. One woman dropped her pot, and the water inside rose into the air for a moment before falling back gently. She screamed, but I simply walked away. I did not yet understand my connection to these events. In the village, I also heard stories about a powerful woman who had risen from poverty to respect. Her name was spoken often with pride. That woman was my mother, though I did not know it yet. She lived in a large compound and was feared for her influence. People said she had suffered in the past but now ruled her life with strict control. I felt nothing yet, but the river beneath me began to stir again. I was sent to work near the home of that powerful woman. I did not know it was my mother's house. It was large, surrounded by guards and workers. She came out one afternoon, and for the first time, our eyes met. Something strange happened in that moment. The air felt heavy. My chest tightened, but I did not understand why. She stared at me longer than others, as if searching my face. Then she quickly turned away, telling her workers to keep the area clean. I heard her say I looked unsettling. Those words passed through me like cold water. I bowed my head and continued my work. But that night, I dreamed of a woman crying by a river. I saw her holding a baby. I saw the baby taken away by water. I woke up shaking, my heart beating fast. The river goddess appeared in my dream and said, "The past is near." I did not understand. But the river never speaks without reason. From that moment, strange things began to happen around the house. Water jars filled themselves. Plants near me grew faster. And people began to whisper again, this time with fear. The strange events became more frequent. One morning, the village well overflowed even though it had been dry for weeks. People gathered, shouting that it was a miracle or a curse. I stood nearby, watching quietly. When I approached, the water calmed instantly. Someone screamed that I was responsible. I stepped back, confused and afraid for the first time since returning to land. The village elder ordered me watch closely. But I did not run. I wanted to understand why the water responded to me. That night, I returned to the river secretly. I knelt by its edge and whispered, asking if it knew me. The surface of the water rose slowly, forming shapes like hands. Then I heard her voice, the river goddess. She told me I was growing closer to my truth. She said the village around me was built on hidden lies. They will remember what they tried to forget, she warned. I asked what she meant, but the river only showed me images of a woman crying and a baby in the storm. My heart ached deeply, though I did not know why. I returned to the village feeling different. Something inside me was waking up. The woman I later learned was my mother began to notice me more. She asked her workers questions about me, but they did not know much. I was just a quiet girl who worked near water. Still, she seemed disturbed whenever I was close. One afternoon, she ordered me brought to her courtyard. My hands shook slightly as I stood before her. She studied me carefully. "Where do you come from?" she asked. I said I did not know. That was the truth. Her expression tightened. For a moment, her eyes looked wet, but she quickly hardened her face again. She told me to leave and never wander near her private rooms. As I walked away, I felt something strange in my chest again, like sadness that was not mine. That night, the river showed me another vision. I saw the same woman younger, crying under a storm. She held a baby tightly before letting it go into the river. I woke up gasping. For the first time, I wondered, could that woman be connected to me? The river did not answer directly. It only whispered, "Truth is coming closer." Tension grew in the village. People began blaming me for small disasters. A broken storage shed, spoiled crops, sudden illness in animals, all were linked to my presence. I felt the weight of their fear. Even those who once ignored me now avoided me completely. But I did not feel anger. I felt confusion. Why did the world respond to me this way? One evening, a group of girls mocked me near the river, calling me a river ghost. They threw small stones at my feet. I did not move. I only looked at the water. Suddenly, the river beside us rose slightly without wind. The girls screamed and ran away. I stood there alone, realizing I was not normal. That night, I returned to the river goddess in my thoughts. She told me gently, "You are not cursed. You are a mirror." I did not understand. She explained that I reflected truth, what people hid inside them would surface around me. That was why fear followed me. I asked if I could stop it. She said no. Truth cannot be stopped once it awakens. Only accepted. Her words scared me more than anything else. My mother's wealth and power continued to grow, but I noticed something strange when I watched her from afar. She never seemed happy. She smiled in public, but when alone, her face was empty. It was as if something inside her was missing. I began to feel drawn to her without understanding why. At the same time, I heard stories of people in the village who had gained wealth through lies and cruelty. They always seemed nervous, as if waiting for punishment. And whenever I was near them, their behavior became worse. Secrets began slipping out during arguments. Truth followed me like a shadow. One evening, I saw my mother standing alone near the edge of a small pond in her compound. She looked tired. For a moment, our eyes met again, and she whispered something I could not hear. Then she quickly walked away. That night, I dreamed of the river again. This time, it showed both of us standing on opposite sides of the water. The river goddess said, "The pond is near the surface now." I woke up with tears I did not understand. Something important was coming closer, and I was not ready for it. The village began to fear me more openly. They said I brought truth storms. Whenever arguments happened near me, secrets came out. One man confessed stealing money. Another woman exposed her lies about her family. It was not intentional, but it kept happening. I tried to stay away from crowds, but it made no difference. Even silence around me felt heavy. My mother's workers became nervous too. Some avoided my eyes completely. One day, a servant dropped a tray of water near me, and instead of spilling, it rose briefly into the air before falling back neatly. The servant fainted. My mother saw this from a distance. Her face turned pale. She began asking more questions about my background again. I could feel her fear growing, though I did not understand why. That night, I returned to the river and asked for answers. The river goddess appeared stronger than before. She said, "Your blood and your past are close." I asked what that meant, but the water only showed me flashes: storm, baby, crying woman, abandonment. My heart pounded painfully. I felt like something inside me was about to break open. The river warned, soon, nothing will remain hidden. My mother began to avoid me completely after that. She instructed her guards to keep me away from her path. But I noticed she often looked disturbed whenever my name was mentioned. I, however, could not stop thinking about her. There was a strange pull I could not explain. One afternoon, I accidentally passed near her private chamber while carrying water. She saw me and froze. The air between us felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. She quickly ordered me away, but her hands were shaking. I left without speaking, but I could feel her fear following me. That night, I had a dream so real I woke up crying. I saw the storm again, but this time I saw the woman's face clearly. It was my mother. She was crying, holding a baby, me. Then she placed me on the riverbank and walked away. I woke up shaking, my breath uneven. The river goddess appeared softly and said, "You remember now?" My mind felt broken. Could it be true? Was the woman who feared me the one who abandoned me? The river did not lie. It never had. After the dream, everything felt different. I could not look at my mother the same way. I watched her closely from a distance. She laughed with guests, but her eyes were always tense. I began noticing small things, how she hesitated when passing water, how she avoided rivers entirely. It all made sense now in a painful way. She was not just afraid of me. She was afraid of what she had done. I did not confront her. I did not know how. Instead, I returned to the river for guidance. The river goddess told me, truth must rise fully before justice can happen. She warned that exposure would bring pain for many people, not just my mother. I asked if I could stop it. She said again, no, the river never bends for comfort. That evening, something strange happened in the village. Water in every home turned slightly warm without fire. People panicked, saying spirits were near. I stood silently as chaos spread. I realized the village itself was reacting to the truth approaching. My identity, my past, and my mother's sin were all converging. I felt both fear and sadness. The river was preparing something I could not escape. The tension reached its peak when the village elder announced a cleansing ritual by the river. He said evil spirits were disturbing the land and blamed me indirectly. I was forced to attend. My mother also came, though she refused to look at me. As the ritual began, drums echoed loudly. People prayed, poured water, and called for peace. But suddenly, the river grew still, too still. Even the wind stopped. Then the water began to rise slowly without rain or wind. Everyone stepped back in fear. I felt my body trembling, but I did not move. The river goddess's presence was strong. The water formed shapes again, like memories rising from deep below. People screamed as images appeared in the air above the river: storm, woman, baby, abandonment. My heart stopped. My mother collapsed to her knees. The truth was no longer hidden. The river had spoken. The elder shouted that it was a curse, but no one listened. The vision kept repeating. I stepped forward, shaking, realizing my life had been built on a forgotten truth. My mother looked at me with tears for the first time. And I knew everything was about to change forever. The river did not stop after revealing the first vision. It grew stronger, showing more scenes from the past. The village watched in horror as every hidden action unfolded in the air like living memories. People saw lies they had told, betrayals they had hidden, and greed they had buried. The river was not only revealing my story, it was revealing everyone's truth. My mother stayed on her knees, shaking and crying. She finally whispered, "It was you." Her voice broke. I stepped closer, my heart heavy. I asked her softly if she remembered that night. She nodded but could not speak. The river goddess's voice filled the air, saying, "Truth must be complete." The water rose higher, surrounding us like a circle. I felt warmth in my chest, mixed with pain. I finally understood who I was. I was the child she abandoned. The silence that followed was heavy. People gasped, stepped back, and cried out. My identity was no longer a mystery. I stood between anger and sorrow, unsure what to feel. The river had delivered its truth. Now, justice was coming next. After the truth was revealed, chaos broke out in the village. Some people blamed my mother. Others feared me more than before. She was taken aside by elders, questioned harshly. I stood alone by the river, watching everything unfold. My chest felt tight, not from anger, but from confusion. I had found my origin, but it did not bring peace. My mother refused to speak to me directly. She stayed silent, broken under the weight of truth. That night, I returned to the river goddess and asked what would happen next. She said, "Justice is not punishment alone. It is balance." I did not fully understand. She told me I would have to choose when the time came. I felt afraid. I had no desire to harm anyone, even my mother. But I also knew the river would not allow lies to remain. Meanwhile, in the village, those who had prospered through deceit began losing their fortunes. Crops failed, arguments increased, and trust disappeared. Everything hidden was collapsing. The river's judgment was spreading. And I realized my return had started something that could not be stopped. My mother was placed under watch by the village council. They demanded she explain everything. I saw her from a distance, sitting alone, looking smaller than I ever imagined. She was no longer powerful in that moment. Just human. Broken. I wanted to approach her, but I hesitated. I did not know what I would say. That night, she came to the river alone. I followed quietly. She stood at the edge, crying softly. For the first time, I heard her speak my name. She said she thought she was protecting herself when she abandoned me. She believed I was cursed. Her voice shook with regret. I stepped forward, and she turned, shocked to see me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The river around us glowed faintly, watching. She asked if I hated her. I could not answer immediately. I felt pain, yes, but also something softer. The river goddess's words echoed in my mind, justice is balance. I told her I did not understand hate, only truth. She broke down crying. The river remained still, waiting. The next day, the village gathered again at the river. The river goddess's presence grew stronger. The water shimmered like glass. I stood at the center, with my mother nearby. The villagers demanded answers and punishment. But instead of anger, the river showed more truth. It revealed how jealousy had started the rumors about me as a baby. It showed how fear had been planted in my mother's heart by others. It exposed how many hands had shaped my abandonment. The truth was not simple. It was shared guilt. The crowd fell silent. My mother looked devastated as she realized she was not the only one responsible. I felt my heart shift. Anger faded slightly, replaced by understanding. The river goddess spoke again, all must face what they have done. But she also said, mercy is part of justice. I did not know what to choose. The village waited for my response. I looked at my mother, then at the crowd. My voice trembled as I prepared to speak, knowing whatever I said would change everything. I stepped forward, my heart beating fast. I looked at the villagers first. Many of them had judged me, feared me, and spread rumors. I told them the river had shown me everything, not just my pain, but theirs too. I said I did not come for revenge. My voice was soft but clear. My mother cried beside me. I turned to her next. She looked terrified of my words. I told her I understood fear, but fear should never destroy innocence. The river goddess's light surrounded us gently, as if listening. I said I could not erase the past, but I would not let it control the future. The village remained silent. I felt something lift inside me. Not anger, not sadness, just release. The river responded with calm waves. I realized I was not just the abandoned child. I was also a bridge between truth and forgiveness. My decision would shape what came next. The air felt lighter, as if the river itself approved. But I knew one final moment of judgment was still coming. The river goddess rose fully for the first time. Her presence filled the entire riverbank. She was both beautiful and terrifying. She said the time of hidden sins was over. The water rose into the sky like a mirror. Everyone saw themselves reflected, not as they appeared, but as they truly were inside. The villagers cried out as their deepest secrets were shown. My mother saw her younger self again, standing in the storm with me. She collapsed, overwhelmed. The goddess then spoke of balance. She said those who caused harm must carry awareness of it, but those willing to change would not be destroyed. The river began to separate people into light and shadow. I stood in the middle, untouched. The goddess said I had fulfilled my purpose, not as a weapon, but as truth itself. I felt tears fall, though I did not know why. The burden I had carried all my life began to dissolve. But the final decision of my mother's fate was still unknown. And I knew the hardest moment was still ahead. My mother approached me slowly. Her face was full of tears. She said she no longer wanted power or respect. She only wanted peace. She asked if I could ever forgive her. I stood still for a long time. My heart felt heavy, but not angry. I remembered the river goddess's teachings: truth, balance, mercy. I told her I could not forget what happened, but I could choose not to carry hatred. She fell to her knees again, this time not in fear, but relief. The river around us softened. The goddess watched silently. I felt something inside me heal, slowly but deeply. The village remained quiet, watching our exchange. For the first time, I saw my mother not as the woman who abandoned me, but as a broken human who made a terrible choice. It did not erase the pain, but it changed its shape. The river shimmered gently, as if approving this fragile piece. But the story was not fully over yet. The final transformation of the village was still unfolding. In the days that followed, the village began to change. People stopped lying as freely. Some confessed past wrongs. Others repaired broken relationships. My mother lived quietly now, no longer seeking status. She often came near the river but never spoke unless I did. I did not hate her, but I was still learning how to exist beside her. The river goddess appeared less often, but her presence remained in the water. She told me my role was almost complete. I had brought truth to a place filled with hidden pain. Now, I must decide where I belong. I could stay in the village or return to the river. I felt torn between two worlds. One raised me, the other gave me birth. Both shaped me. One evening, I sat by the water, watching the sunset. My reflection shimmered strangely, as if the river itself was asking my choice. I realized I was no longer the abandoned child. I was something new. And soon, I would have to choose my final path. My mother came to me one last time before my decision. She brought nothing but a small cloth she once wrapped me in as a baby. She said she had kept it all these years without knowing why. Her hands trembled as she gave it to me. I held it gently, feeling a strange connection to my past. She said she would understand if I left forever. I looked at her and saw no enemy, only a woman who had suffered her own consequences. I told her the river does not erase people, it teaches them. She nodded with tears. That night, I returned to the river goddess for guidance. She told me there was no wrong choice, only truth in movement. I asked what would happen if I stayed. She said I would guide the village toward balance. If I left, the river would carry my story into other lands. Both paths mattered. I felt my heart calm. I finally understood that I was not trapped by destiny. I was part of it. The village gathered again without fear this time. They were not expecting judgment anymore, but understanding. I stood before them and told them my decision would not be about punishment or escape. It would be about growth. I said I would stay for a time, to help rebuild what truth had broken. My mother listened silently, tears in her eyes. The river goddess's presence shimmered in the river, peaceful and steady. The water no longer rose in anger, but flowed gently. I saw children playing near the riverbank without fear. I saw people speaking more honestly. The change was not perfect, but it had begun. I realized then that justice is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet healing. My story was no longer about abandonment alone. It was about what rises after truth destroys silence. I felt peace for the first time since I left the river's depths. But one final message still waited for me from the goddess. That night, I returned alone to the river for the last time as its chosen voice. The river goddess appeared softly, her form glowing like moonlight. She told me I had done well. I had turned pain into truth and truth into balance. The river would always remember me, but my path now belonged to the world above. She said, what was buried has returned, and now it flows freely. I knelt by the water, thanking her for raising me when no one else would. The river touched my hands gently, like a farewell. I looked back at the village lights behind me, then at the endless water ahead. I was no longer the girl they called useless. I was the living truth of the river. And I understood something deeply: what people try to bury will always return. Not always as revenge, but sometimes as understanding. As I walked away from the riverbank, I knew my story was not ending. It was becoming part of everything that flowed beyond it.